Invitation hitting. I took a deep breath as I stepped through the narrow alleyway. The cold December air pressing against my coat. My hands trembled slightly, not from the chill, but from anticipation. I hadn't been on a date in years, and the thought of meeting someone from the dating app made my stomach twist into knots. Monda. The door of the bar was nearly obscured behind a stack of weathered crates, and a faint amber light spilled out onto the cracked pavement, casting long, twisting shadows that seemed to writhe like living things. I wavered, feeling that perhaps it might be wisest to turn back. But then the message from her pinged again. "I'll be waiting inside. Don't be late." I stepped in, and it was smaller inside than I'd pictured. Almost cozy, save for an overpowering feeling of something being off. The walls were covered in framed photographs. Hundreds of pale, expressionless faces stared out at me. Their eyes were almost painfully sharp for comfort. I shook my head and reminded myself that it was the poor light and the wine-fooled imagination. She sat at a table in the corner, tall and with long chestnut hair cascading down her shoulders. Her eyes glimmered with a strange warmth, yet something in their depth made me uneasy. She smiled as I approached, but the smile felt measured, almost rehearsed. "Hi," I said, trying to steady my voice. "Hello," she replied softly, her voice velvety but faintly hollow. "I'm glad you made it." And yeah, we had sat, and for the first few minutes, the conversation had been normal. Mundane intros, polite laughter, Small talk about work. As the minutes dragged on, however, my attention kept drifting back to the photographs. Man, one of them in particular caught my eye. A group of people stood before this very bar, their attire old-fashioned, their faces eerily placid. And then I saw it. One of the women in this photo was wearing the exact same hairstyle, the exact same coat as her. But this picture was from decades ago. My throat did a somersault. I forced a laugh. "That's a nice photo," I said. "Family reunion?" No. She followed my gaze. "Ah, yes. Something like that. We have a long history here. Generations have always come to this place. It's comforting." Wanda. Her eyes stayed on mine a beat too long, and that sent a shiver down my spine. The room seemed to close in on me, the walls inching closer with every heartbeat, it seemed. "I like the vibe here," I managed to say. "It's intimate." She nodded, beaming brightly. "Yes, intimate and safe. Perfect to meet a new person." I sipped my wine, trying to ease the sudden tightness in my chest. But the taste was bitter. No matter how fruity the drink appeared, my hand brushed the table, sticky and oddly warm. I pulled it away quickly. There was something about the sensation that didn't feel right. Across the room, I noticed a figure at the bar. A woman, dark-haired, sitting perfectly still, staring straight ahead. Her glass of amber liquid hadn't moved. Since I walked in, I squinted, trying to place a memory, a face I might have known. My pulse accelerated. "Are you all right?" She leaned forward slightly. "You look pale." "Yes, just a bit." "Distracted," I muttered, my eyes unwilling to leave that woman. My pulse was thudding so loud I was sure she could hear it. She followed my glance. "Ah, you noticed her," she said lightly, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "She's part of the ambiance. Don't worry. She won't bother us." Blend. The word "part of the ambiance" made my skin crawl. I tried to concentrate on her words, tried to push down the rising panic. Right. Ambiance. "Makes sense," I said, forcing a small smile. Minutes ticked by. The conversation started again, but I couldn't clearly make out the sound of her voice any longer. My brain registered every single movement. All the breathing, all the shades. The bar had grown louder in an almost imperceptible way, yet quieter. The air thickened. I could feel it pressed against my chest, and then suddenly, she was leaning in, her face inches from mine. "Do you like to be surprised?" she breathed, her amber eyes alive with mischief. I swallowed. "Depends." "On the surprise," I muttered, her smile broadened. Too wide. My stomach fell. Her teeth, white, almost unnaturally so, all perfectly aligned, were almost too large for her mouth. A shiver of terror ran through me, and I realized I had frozen in place. "Dale, let me show you something," she whispered, laying her hand on mine. The touch was a spark to me, but not because it was warm, so it wasn't, but because of the unnatural smoothness of her skin. Felt wrong. Blah. I tried to pull back, but my movements felt sluggish, as though invisible threads weighed down my limbs. The dark-haired woman on the far side of the room rose from her seat and made for me, in slow, measured steps. The other patrons mirrored my hesitation, again standing silently, eyes open yet blank. "You can't go," she said low, almost with tenderness. Not yet. We've been expecting you. The words were casual, almost kind, but my mind shrieked at me. This was not kindness. The whole room seemed to contract, and I suddenly knew that there was no place to retreat to. The doors, the windows, just walls, encasing me in a room that had expanded to the seams, in horror, but shrunk in the area of safety. My eye looked back at her, searching for some trace of humanity. What? What is this place? I managed to stammer out, my voice shaking. Her smile stayed in place, shining, disquieting. A place for those who belong, for those whose presence is necessary. It felt as though the truth had trickled ice into my chest cavity. Every instinct shrieked at me to run, but my body no longer followed directions. The other figures, silent, waiting, expectant, closed in slowly, methodically. It was the collective anticipation that made my head spin. And she drew a finger across my face. Your skin. So perfect, elastic, untouched by time, it will serve well. And your size, ideal. We've been preparing. I stumbled backward, desperate for escape. 1 step, 2 steps, and the floor beneath me seemed to warp. The nearest exit revealed only solid brick. A dead end. Welcome, she whispered, almost gleefully, to the family. The room shifted, reality bending with it. Every shadow, every face, every silent stare merged into one inescapable truth. I was trapped. The people were not people, not fully. And her, she had been waiting for me long before this night. I backed into the wall, my chest heaving, terror-consuming thought. The last thing I saw before the darkness closed in was her grin. Wide, perfect, eternal. And I understood. Some doors are never meant to be opened. Some places are never meant to be left. And some invitations are never optional.